And with that, we welcome you in to Marriage Talk, the podcast that has been rolling along for a few years, but slowed down a little bit recently. I'm happy to announce we're back with regularly scheduled episodes, the conversations that matter so much in your journey towards happily ever aftering together. I don't know if my old English teachers would approve of that phrase, but we'll try it and see if it flies. Bill Hobson here. And I am so excited to introduce to all of you, maybe not for the first time, but for some of you perhaps, the couple that will be riding shotgun throughout the next chapters of Marriage Talk podcast, Jay and Laura Laffoon. You can find out all kinds of information about them online at jayandlaura.com. You'll see that link in the podcast notes. And as we get things rolling right at the very beginning, Jay and Laura, you had asked me to make sure that as we got this whole thing restarted with, Marriage Talk 2.0, that we took a moment to say a big thank you to those who have come before in the
Yes,
form of Terry and Sandy Ladico, right? You had the chance to meet them.
Oh, lovely couple, wonderful ministry. We think the world of them. We even had them up to our conference at Grand Hotel, our Celebrate Your Marriage conference, because they've got that kind of a powerful ministry, and we just thank the Lord for the base that's been laid.
Yes, absolutely.
In fact, I emailed Terry before we started this project just a few days ago and thanked him for all of the countless hours that he and Sandy had poured into the foundation of this podcast. And he wrote back a very nice note that includes, I pray that God blesses the 2.0 launch with Marriage Talk. Sounds like a great opportunity. Jay and Laura have a great ministry, and it sounds perfect for all of you to come together. Tell them I said hello, and I will back the podcast with praying for great blessings. And that's exactly the kind and gentle spirit that I've come to know and appreciate in Terry and Sandy Ladico. So where are we headed with this? Why are we doing this? And who on earth are Jay and Laura Laffoon? Those are the questions that some of our diehard listeners would like to have us address.
Well, let us know when you get the answers.
Yes, who are you people?
Where we're going is our mission. We'll start with our mission, then we'll kind of give you the background. Our mission is to help busy couples stay happily married for life. The premise is this: Satan doesn't want you bad, he wants you busy. And if he can get you busy, then he can get you distracted. And so we're dedicated our entire married life almost to helping busy couples stay happily married for life.
Yes, we'll this December we'll be married 39 years, and we've been in ministry together all 39 of those years in different types of ministries. But we started in youth ministry together, and then about 10 years into our marriage and about 10 or 12 years into ministry, we were like,
we don't like kids
we
so
don't
much.
like teenagers anymore. And actually, what happened was we were getting a lot of parents asking us questions about their kids. You work with our kids, you understand kids. Can you help us understand our kids? And the more and more we worked with parents, we came to the conclusion that a lot of child rearing issues, a lot of marriage issues, a lot of family issues, parenting issues start with mom and dad. And those marriages that just weren't on the same page. And so when we came to that point in our marriage and in our life where we were like, we love teenagers, we're going to have teenagers of our own, but maybe it's time to move on. And we really focused in on marriage ministry.
Interestingly enough, we have we believe this, that every couple has a romance story. You've got your romantic story, and ours started in 1984. We were set on a blind date on July 4th, 1984. I had moved from my hometown of Petoskey, Michigan to Atlanta to start a job after college, and Laura had moved home to be with her mom for the summer because Laura had a really good summer job that she had all through college. And so we're set up on this blind date, and the morning after our blind date, Laura told her mother that she was going to marry me. Laura, keen insight into the Lord there. She knows the Lord and his heart. And ironically, over the next 10 days in Atlanta, Georgia, at that time it was a city of 2 million people, she managed for her path and my path to cross 8 of the next 10 days. And so I didn't know it then, but we call that stalking now.
It's a crime, yes.
Yes. But 10 days after our blind date, on July 14th, I did in fact ask her to marry me. And we got married that December. We really felt like the Lord brought us together. We felt like he brought us together for a purpose. And early on, we thought it was youth ministry. But that youth ministry preparation was just getting us ready to really focus on what we believe is the fundamental institution that builds all things in the world. And that is this marriage relationship, particularly marriage relationships that have Christ as the center. It's a perfect reflection of the Holy Trinity. And our goal is to help couples see that.
Well, and obviously, when it gets started so fast for the two of you, and it's clearly ordained by the Lord's timing, everything's been perfect since.
Of course.
That's
See,
how
I grew up in Petoskey, okay, a northern Michigan hick boy, and Laura grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, sweet innocent Southern Belle. We could not have been more different.
And yes, our background's the way we were raised, but also Jay's the firstborn. He's the firstborn on both sides of his family. So he was the firstborn golden child. I'm a middle child. I'm the peacemaker. I just hey, let's just everybody get along and have a good time. And so those personalities really clashed. Actually, they didn't clash until about 5 years ago when I hit a different age, because I just, whatever you say,
that was our whole life. I was in charge, and she was like, "Sounds good."
And then about 5 years ago, when I'm like, nope, that doesn't work that way anymore. I'm going to start telling you what to do.
Yeah. And I was just like, wait, there's only room for one Jay in this relationship.
So we've everything's been roses.
It's interesting
all
because
39 years.
We talk about the big three in marriage, the big three issues, if you would, and that's money. Whether you have money or don't have money, you have money issues. Sex, because God's created us very differently and with very different needs in the area of intimacy. And then family, and that regards not only your extended family and setting boundaries, but also how you're going to raise your family. Now, you combine those three issues with the fact that men and women communicate differently, and there's a lot of potential landmines in marriage. And trust me, we've hit all of those landmines, and they really are landmines. I mean, you don't think so at the time, but it can be pretty explosive in any one of those areas. And the challenge that we really try and help couples understand is you're not in this alone. Yes, you've got landmines going off in your marriage, but there are others who have survived those landmines and know how to navigate those landmines and move forward. And that's really our goal, is to help couples see that.
So when you start to discover, oh man, I just stepped on a landmine and I am injured, or my spouse is injured because I stepped into this area where neither one of us thought this was this hot of a button, but as it turns out, it's really, really hot. How do you start to navigate or manage through the recovery, the triage, the treatment of the landmine being stepped on, especially when you're maybe newer into your journey together as opposed to being married 39 years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, first of all, from the very beginning, for Jay and I, divorce was never an option.
Murder, yes, but divorce, no.
We looked each other in the eyes before we even stood at the altar and said, "I do," and said, divorce is just not an option. So either you can get divorced, you can work through it, or you can be miserable the rest of your life. Well, we took divorce off the table. So you can either work through it or you can be miserable the rest of your life. And so understand, having that foundation and agreement between the two of us, you work through it. And yeah, it's not always easy. And sometimes it takes some silence, not talking to each other, not for long periods of time. But yeah, we're in the middle of this big discussion. It gets heated. You know what? We're going to take a 15-minute break, and you go your way. I'm going to go my way, and we're going to come back. And that has worked good for us, as far as I came from a family of screamers.
Yes.
We scream and yell. That's the way we show love. And Jay comes from a family of, they talk a lot. They talk an awful lot. And so he always would want to talk, and I would just want to scream. And so
actually, she's more like a chihuahua. It would be more like
little yippy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking that 15-minute break worked really well for us, both to collect our thoughts, to calm down, to kind of mellow out. That would be one way I can.
And I will tell you that, yes, we've been married almost 39 years, but a lot of our landmines were early, because you don't realize you're stepping on them. And, I can give you an example in all three of those areas in our marriage where we stepped on landmines. Take money, for instance. I am a saver. Laura is a
I
spender,
love to spend.
and Laura has no clue, had no clue what the word budget meant. And I would find new credit cards in her purse, and I'm like, okay, what's this? And how much have you rung up on that? And so we had some serious financial debt early in our marriage that was significant, that we had to, okay, we got to talk this through. We've got to make a plan. I know you're not meaning to go to Walmart and spend, $200 every time you go. So how about we go to Walmart with a list, and I won't overreact on those times you do make that mistake. And we moved back to Michigan. And so we were close to my family, but far away from her family. And at first it was one of those boundaries. It was like, oh, they want to have us for dinner. Oh, that's great. We don't have to cook. Oh, they want to have us for dinner. That's great.
Every night of the week.
And it was like, okay, pump the brakes. We don't live with my mommy and daddy. We've got our own. And then in the area of sexuality, it was one of those things where two things. I think we had different expectations. Laura did grow up in the deep South. I don't think her mom ever uttered the word sex, to her. And I'm just going to be frank. I don't think most men in their 20s know how to truly love their wife in an intimate way. And I was one of those guys. And so Laura's response to our sex life was, what's the big deal? And so then there's rejection, and then there's hurt, and then there's confusion, and then there's, what's going on? And so in all three of those areas, we stepped on big landmines early that could have destroyed our marriage had we not looked at each other and said, okay, let's do the work to figure this out.
Yeah. And at some point for the two of you, you made the choice, or you felt the calling, I don't know which you would define it as, but to take all of that and turn it into a ministry that would help other couples avoid or recover from landmines. It's one thing to deal with it, learn from it, move past it, get through the times when you've screwed up and make it all good. But it's another thing to share your struggles and then turn that into what now is probably I don't know, is it 35 years or so of ministry to couples? How did you decide together to flip that switch and do something more with it than just keep it within the four walls of your house?
Well, one thing we also, when we met each other, we both individually knew that when we got married, we wanted to do ministry with our spouse.
Didn't know what kind.
We didn't know what kind. And so when we met, Jay had grown up in a youth ministry home, and I was looking to go into youth ministry. So we thought that was what it was. So we started down that path. And we said, we kind of went, 10 years in and went, there's more to helping kids and teenagers than just helping kids and teenagers. It's helping mom and dad. And we were at a point in our marriage where, that sounds like a really good, valid avenue to travel down now. And
what was happening also, I was speaking at a lot of camps and conferences for youth, and every camp and conference center in the country, usually sometime in the winter, in February, they'll do a couples retreat. And so they would ask, oh, do you and your wife ever do couples stuff? Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so the answer is always going to be yes, we do. And we started doing that, and it was fun because we were speaking together, and we were just being us. And I've got a friend that says, Jay, you're just funny enough. And I said, what does that mean? He said, you're just funny enough that I want to keep on listening. And I'm not a comedian. Laura's not a comedian, but our personalities are such that we're just funny enough to tell a story that's going to have deep meaning, but to do it in a humorous way. And what tripped the trigger for us, I think, we got asked to a church, not a conference center, a church asked us to come do their marriage retreat at a hotel in Ludington, Michigan. They were going to pay all of our expenses and pay us $300 to come for we're talking 2 nights in a hotel room, all of our food, our gas, and $300. Now you got to understand, to a youth pastor, that was like, oh my gosh, we can have Christmas. And we had so much fun on that weekend that on our 2-hour drive home, we outlined our first book. It was so much fun. And we kind of knew then that this is something we really want to try and grow. And then Grand Hotel came along, and like you said, we're excited We've been going to
Well-
Grand Hotel for over 25 years now.
And I think with teenagers, when we were working with teenagers, you speak from your own experience. You know, with these kids, you try and give them stories and you give them illustrations to try and help them through what you've been through. And so we just kind of took that same philosophy with our marriage ministry. We used to tell people all the time, our marriage ministry is just doing youth ministry with married couples. We want to encourage people to have fun. We want them to learn to laugh. We want them to learn to love, but we want them to learn to live this thing called marriage together. And so that's just, it wasn't ever even we shouldn't talk about that, or we've just always been people who have lived our life on stage and lived our marriage on stage.
And one of the biggest compliments we get when we're speaking in public is someone will come up and say, it's as if you live in our house, because what you just described on stage is exactly what we're going through. And so knowing that there's so many commonalities, that we're not alone, that doesn't mean that the solution's exactly the same for every couple dealing with stuff, but there are enough truths out there, biblical truths, and God's plan, that we can relay and really help people celebrate their marriage.
Yeah, and in the days or weeks ahead, as we continue down this version 2.0 of the Marriage Talk podcast together, we will tackle topics per week, and many of them you've already alluded to, all the big three issues of communication and conflict resolution and all of those things. But for anybody who listened to the episode prior to this one, where I interviewed technology, I don't know, guru Joey Odom, he focused on the busyness of our world and taking our lives back, reclaiming control over things like technology and social media and all of those things that have us perpetually distracted. And you said that one of the things that you are all about is helping busy couples stay happily married for life. What's the role of technology, kids' schedules, and just the general attention span deficit that we're all in these days? Because we are like the character in the movie, a squirrel. It's just something distracts us and we are instantly on to something else. In fact, there was a time when I thought all of these podcasts should be 2 hours long. We've learned that unless somebody is stuck in traffic for 4 hours, they're not going to listen for that long. So we try to keep these things in bite-sized morsels of 30 to 35 minutes. So let's talk about the busyness of life and how we can help couples get mastery over their own time, their own schedules.
Well, we did just do this summer, we just did a blog series on the impact of the digital world on marriage. And it's frightening for me, when we do it. I can vividly remember, we'll go out for a lunch date and we order our food and then we sit down and we both pick up our phones. We got to check our email. We got to do that. No, the whole purpose of us being on the lunch date was to have time together and to put these phones aside. And so we heard Joey's podcast on Marriage Talk, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I would encourage people, if this is the first time you've listened to the Marriage Talk podcast, go back one and listen to that. I'm going to tell you why. We listened to it, and one of the first things I did was I forwarded it to our son and his wife, who are in their 30s. And it resonated with them to no end, so much so that they contacted Joey and started working through his program. To your question, I'm going to quote Joey. When you've got that phone in your hand, millions of people can connect with you. That's pretty cool in one aspect, but it's pretty frightening in another. Laura says that I have a girlfriend, her name is Potential Spam, because that comes up on my phone all the time. But when you put that phone down, when you're with your spouse or when you're with a child, you are telling them, you're the most important thing in my life right now. And it is so hard to do, because we are a generation that is hardwired to move quick. I remember growing up vividly, being told that because of computers, we will be working 20-hour work weeks because the computers will be doing. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yes. Oh, and you're thinking, all the fun I could have, could go golf and join sports leagues, do this, do that, go boat. Oh yeah, 20-hour work week. No, it's done the opposite. It's made us more busy than ever, because we can get more done. And that's the good side of it, yes, but the bad side of it is life has a rhythm and a pace. And there's a natural rhythm that I think we're born to experience. Nightfall, sunlight, winter, spring, summer, fall. Everything has a cycle. And we have a life cycle that I think has been accelerated because of technology. And we've got to learn to back that cycle down, take deep breaths. That's one of the things we tell each other all the time. Deep breaths. Stop for a moment, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this something that's valuable or is this something that's not so valuable?
We got those words of wisdom, deep breaths from our granddaughter, who and it goes with technology because we were babysitting and Jay, actually, I was babysitting. Jay was out playing golf.
I was out playing golf with my son.
And our daughter-in-law was upstairs with the baby on the phone, and I was downstairs with the 3-year-old. And they have like 20 million remote controls for their TV. And I'm just trying to get the cartoon on that the 3-year-old wants. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I was getting frantic. And I kept saying, Graylin, Grandma will figure it out. I will figure it out. I will figure it out. But I kept trying. I was getting so frustrated. Finally, Graylin, the 3-year-old, looks at me and goes, Grandma, deep breaths. Deep breaths. And we find ourselves saying that.
That's our new catchphrase
all the time. Is Grandpa, Jay, Mom, Dad, whatever, take a deep breath and just get back into that rhythm that so often we just get so frantic and we get so busy with life going here, there, and yon. And then you throw in computers and iPhones and technology and it just ramps it up. And so, yeah, take a deep breath.
Well, what most of the listeners probably don't know, Bill, is that Jay and Laura and Bill and Ellen have been friends for a very long time. Yeah. And we've gotten to know each other, and so folks, this isn't an inside joke. One of Bill's shows is called Michigan Golf Live. We're both avid golfers. Laura's an avid golfer, and Bill, one of the best places to take a deep breath.
Yeah,
the first tee.
That's what I was going to say. When you were out golfing with your son, you were out golfing. You were parenting.
That's right. Well, there we go.
Oh, okay. We'll remember that.
And when I'm out playing with my buddies, I'm fellowshipping.
There we go.
That kind of thing.
That is words to live by right there.
I can't imagine how many times you have heard couples at your various conferences and events come to you and say, we are just two ships passing in the night.
Oh.
That's what we've become. And maybe they don't even have children. Maybe they have work schedules that force them to be on different shifts, or maybe that's just how the relationship has kind of separated a bit. And now they're doing, we do our own thing, that kind of a thing. There's a danger to that.
Oh,
there's a danger to letting your kids' schedules dominate your household. And your kids aren't involved in drug running and, gambling addictions. They're going to soccer practice, dance class, and all those things. But the taxi still has to run in every direction at once. And at some point, that's one of the reasons that what Joey Odom had to say really hit home with me so much was, at some point, you've got to ask yourself the question, what am I going to remember 30 years from now? Is it the night of the week that we set aside for no devices and no activities and no friends coming over, and it was just us playing a silly old board game? I grew up in a very busy household, so we ate out, my goodness, I don't know, all of the nights. And I liked it. And then when I got married to my beautiful wife, Ellen, who grew up as a farm girl, restaurants, maybe for ice cream once in a while. That was it. So, right, it's two different lifestyles come together. When they say ships passing in the night, what do Jay and Laura want our couples to hear?
One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received came from a 80-year-old gentleman who was at one of our ultimate date nights. And it was funny because of just the way the room was set up. I could see he and his wife the whole night. That there's a little can light that just shone on them, and they were arm in arm. They were deeply in love. And he came up to me afterward and he said, "Remind people, what you did to get her is what you need to do to keep her, and the same is true the other way. What you did to get him is what you need to do to keep him." And for those that have wandered into that area of we are just ships, Yes, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be challenging to say, honey, let's go out on a real date. I want to dress nicely. I want to smell good. And I want to go eat a meal where we're not eating with plastic. And I want to treat you like you deserve to be treated. That's hard if you're two ships in a night. And then for her to say, that would be wonderful. And can we leave our phones in the car when we go in the restaurant? Yeah, I mean, just those things. Yeah, that's super hard. And we're in the mentality of, well, what if our kids call? What if there's a death? Well, you know what?
It'll still be there an hour and a half from now.
There's absolutely little to nothing you can do in that situation. And in an hour later, we'll handle it.
A really practical tool, and we'll talk about this in coming episodes because communication is key for marriage. But one of the very practical tips that we give couples is, if nothing else, if you can do nothing else, take 15 minutes every day. Just the two of you, sit down over a cup of coffee at night before you go to bed, whatever it is. No distractions, no computers, no phones, no children. If you have kids, 15 minutes isn't going to kill them to put them in front of a TV, and have that one-on-one conversation of just sharing about your day. How'd your day go? What'd you do today? And as it's hard to get started. It's hard to work it into your schedule, just like exercise is hard to work into your schedule and keeping your meetings and all that stuff. But it's important for that 15 minutes of uninterrupted conversation, for building that and taking care of that two ships passing in the night. We have this 15 minutes every day. Everybody has 15 minutes to take time to just sit and converse with each other.
Yeah, for sure. As we kind of wind down this initial relaunch episode of the podcast, just a quick reminder to everybody that Jay and Laura host events of all types, shapes, sizes, places. You heard Jay allude to their date nights. You heard him allude to a grand hotel experience. Now, some of you who are listening are nowhere near the Midwest. We used to get emails from all over the country, and a couple from like London and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure where you are physically, but there is a magical place in northern Michigan called Grand Hotel. It's on an island where there are no automobiles. It is horses and bicycles. In this 140-ish year old wood framed hotel is spectacular. And over a lot of years, Jay and Laura have hosted Celebrate Your Marriage events in the spring and in the fall. We are recording this conversation in the early part of September. We know this, Jay and Laura, this will be something you'll discover as we move down the road together. People listen to the Marriage Talk podcast at all different times. It's quite likely that somebody is listening to us right now and it's February of 2025. I don't really know. But for those of you who are a little more time sensitive, as we are talking in the early part of September 2023, let me give you guys a chance to invite everybody to your October event at Grand Hotel, or perhaps one next spring.
We would recommend next spring because gratefully, we are sold out for October.
Good.
Yes, and that is a good thing. We're praising the Lord for that. But next spring, we're super excited in May to be bringing in our good friend Gary Thomas, who wrote Sacred Romance.
Sacred Marriage.
That one too. Anyway, but one of the best. See, Laura and I are speakers who write books, but we're primarily speakers. And then you've got authors who also speak, but they're primarily authors. Gary Thomas is one of the best of both. He's an outstanding author, and he's also an outstanding speaker. And you'll be blessed beyond belief next May. And you want to get in early because these events do sell out. There's no question.
And if you have a desire to bring an event into your church for maybe a special couples night or some sort of a marriage encouragement retreat, how does that work?
You can go to our website, jayandlaura.com, and right on there, just go to booking. It's a little drop-down menu. Just click that. You can actually go through and look at our date nights. You can look through our Celebrate Your Marriage events, look through go play through the whole website, and you can see that. But if you're specifically looking to book us for a date night, you can go to booking and fill out that form, and our booking agents will contact you.
Well, I am super excited to be bringing some fresh energy and life into the Marriage Talk podcast. It started as a passion project back in 2017. Here we are now 6 years later. And again, thank you so much to Terry and Sandy Ludico for their efforts in helping get the whole thing launched. For those of you who are into this kind of thing, I actually have a network of different podcasts, so sports, golf, and inspirational stories. And I'm not exaggerating. I could show you the statistics. Far and away, the most listened to podcast in the network that I produce is Marriage Talk, because the need is by far and away the greatest and the most important. As much as I'd like to think talking about my latest trip to a golf destination would be of utmost importance, these things that have an eternal impact like this do matter. And we will continue to bring you insight, ideas, challenges. Not every episode is going to make you comfortable in the days ahead, but I think that's kind of like going to the doctor, because there are times when they break out that thing for my arm and I have to look the other way or else I'll pass out. It's not comfortable, but it's designed to help heal. And that's why we're here. So, Jay and Laura, very excited. Thanks for helping us kick things off.
Our pleasure.
Glad to be here.